the last person in, but nobody took me up on it. It's parking. We all know that's the problem. So I will call the meeting to order. We just have the one item on the meeting, and that's a second public meeting on a project, upcoming project. I will read the public meeting introduction. I should have memorized this by now, but I haven't. Notice of collection. Personal information collected as a result of this public hearing and on the forms provided at the back of the room is collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments may be collected and may form part of the minutes, which will be available to the public. Questions regarding the collection should be forwarded to the Director of Planning and Development, and that can be done through the clerk's office. The purpose of public meetings is to present planning applications in a public forum as required by the Planning Act. Following presentations by the applicant, committee members will be afforded an opportunity to ask questions for clarification or further information. The meeting will then be open to the public for comment and questions. Interested persons are requested to give their name and address for recording in the minutes. There is also a sign-in sheet for interested members of the public at the back of the room. No decisions are made at public meetings concerning applications unless otherwise noted. The public meeting is held to gather public opinion. An exception to the rule is a combined reports, which consolidates the public meeting and comprehensive reports. These applications are deemed by staff as straightforward and routine. This business practice has been in place for a number of years and is received by the applicants as efficient customer service and effective use of committee time. Please note that staff use discretion in determining if an application can be a combined public meeting comprehensive report to expedite the approval process. Public meeting reports are provided to inform the public of all relevant information. Information gathered is then referred back to planning and development staff for the preparation of a comprehensive report and recommendation to the planning committee. This means that the meeting tonight, after the meeting tonight, staff will be considering the comments made by the public in their further review of the applications. When this review is completed, a report will be prepared making a recommendation for action to this committee. The recommendation is typically to approve with conditions or to deny. The committee then makes a recommendation on the applications to City Council. City Council has the final say on the applications from the city's perspective. Following council decision, notice will be circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kingston to the local planning appeal tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Kingston before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. And I'll move on to our single item public meeting submitted by Podium Developments for 235 Colburn, 243 Colburn, and 60, 62, and 64 Elm Street. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Excuse me. So, as you mentioned, this is the second public meeting for this application. The application is to amend the zoning bylaw to permit the proposed development, which I'll present to you. The first public meeting was in May of 2015, so it's been some time, and that's the reason for the second public meeting. The site is shown here within the context of the City of Kingston, just north of Princess Street, west of Division Street, within the neighborhood of Williamsville. You can see an aerial shot of the neighborhood here. Again, just north of Princess Street, we see this collection of retail commercial uses, a Main Street type atmosphere. The houses surrounding the site are mainly low-rise residential. You can see some of the larger roofs just between the Elm Street and Colborne Street labels. That's evidence of recent redevelopments of other multifamily projects in the neighborhood. Somewhat of an indication of the context of the neighborhood and the appropriateness of a higher density use within the area, particularly in context of the proximity to Princess Street. This is the site view, the existing context of the 4 sites that comprise this development. So we have 64 Elm Street, 60 and 62, 243 Colborne, and 235 Colborne Street. All are older houses, been through a few renovations, and certainly are lower density for their proximity to the main street of Princess. We are seeking to amend the zoning bylaw we are seeking to amend the zoning bylaw with site-specific provisions to allow the development. We are not looking to amend the official plan. You can see we're designated residential within the official plan, again, showing proximity to that Main Street commercial use on Princess and indicating the appropriateness of this development. Similarly, within the zoning bylaw, you can see the B3 zone is our designation for multifamily residential, and that's the area that is bound by Elm Street and Division, that red line that follows, I guess I can show it with my mouse here. There we go. The Elm Street, this border here is the B3 zone. Again, that same place where we saw the larger roofs, indicating appropriate uses, higher density uses in proximity to a main street. This is our proposed development application. So we have 24 units of stacked townhouses in total. 16 of those will be along Colborne Street, 8 will be along Elm Street. The interior of the lot will be used for parking, amenity spaces, bicycle parking, garbage storage, those kind of things. Our lot coverage for the site is 32% for building area, and we're 0.2 hectares large overall. It's worth noting that each of the units will be 3-bedroom units, and with the stacked townhouse configuration, that means Colborne, for example, will have 8 lower townhouse units and 8 upper townhouse units, each with 3 bedrooms. This is the site plan for the application. Again, you can see the amenity space within the center, the parking spaces, and the units. You can see some of the faded in background here with the existing residential buildings. We're generally in keeping with that established building line along Elm Street, as you can see from this rendering, as well as on Colborne Street. We're in a similar instance of in line with that general building setback that's been established. This is a sample elevation of the Colborne Street proposal, showing some of the proposed finishes of brick, metal, and wood. I won't go through all of these, but these are essentially the amendments that we are seeking to the bylaw. The first few and where they correlate to on the site plan itself. The first few are regarding the provisions or permissions on the site to allow the stacked townhouse format. The second being to allow dwelling units within the cellar, which is worth noting that it's only a half basement, not a full basement, so it'll be half above ground. Some others are regarding parking rates and parking space dimensions. The parking rates we've reduced from a requirement of 1.4 to 0.83, which means 20 spaces across the 24 units. This was justified by our traffic study submitted with the application. The parking space dimensions are typical in other cities and are something that have been accepted in other cities' zoning bylaws even. So very much in keeping with a more urban format of development. The setbacks along the sides, you can see we're in tighter conditions, and this is to allow the parking within the rear rather than along the street, providing a site access. and our increased setbacks along Colborne Street forced us to shift and, while maintaining this side setback, shift this and this side setback and make it a little smaller, but I'll get into that. Skipping down to lot density and lot occupancy, we haven't proposed an increase in lot occupancy to 113%. We feel this is appropriate, again, given the more urban context, the proximity to the main commercial strip, similar developments in the area, as well as the consolidation of the 4 lots. And the max bedroom density is the equivalent of the 24 units times the 3 bedrooms. For those of you who weren't here at the 2015 public meeting, I certainly wasn't, this was the proposal that we presented. And you'll see on the right-hand side the proposal that we're presenting today, and I'm sure everyone will notice that these two are very, very similar. There are not many changes, and we've highlighted the changes for you down the middle. These include increased setbacks to both the frontages, increased landscape area overall, which brings our total landscape covered area to 35% on the site. We've increased our amenity spaces by 180% since our first proposal, or since our first public meeting, rather. We've reduced our parking spaces by 4, but that was justified, and it allowed for greater setbacks along the street frontages, as well as greater amenity spaces within the interior of the lot. And as I spoke to earlier, the reduced side yard setback along the side was due to the increased frontage along Colborne Street. We set back the building further, but we have this angular property line, which means we had to shift the building to the west, meaning a reduced side yard setback. And in direct response to public comment at the first public meeting, or before the first public meeting, we've provided planting, perennial flowering planting along the Colborne Street frontage, more in keeping with the neighborhood and provides better urban design. So with that, the next steps of this application, given that we've taken 4 years since our first meeting, we're hoping to receive approval from council later this year in the fall, and ultimately this will have to go through the site plan approval process still in the following year. And that's all. So if anyone has any questions, I'd welcome.
Great, thank you. I'll turn to staff to get for comment.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. As the applicant, and you noted, this is the second public meeting for this application. Notice for the meeting this evening was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. To date, with respect to this second public meeting, staff haven't received any inquiries or comments. However, certainly any comments that we do receive, both from the first meeting and tonight's meeting, we will be taking back and incorporating those into any revisions that we need to discuss with the applicant, and then eventually the comprehensive report that will come back to the committee at a later date.
We'll now turn to the committee. Just a quick comment. The vice chair has sent his regrets tonight, so I think I'm going to deputize Councillor Osanek to be acting vice chair, if you would. Pardon me? Should we call a vote on that? Councillor Chappelle's first, so, and then Osanek.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the clarity of your presentation. I've seen a number of presentations sitting on this committee, and that was by far one of the best presented, that I've been able to read the documentation and then come here and just actually enjoy the slide presentation with your commentary. Noting that Kingston declared a climate emergency in March, are you planning on having any of those parking spots electrified, having electric parking spots available?
I wouldn't, sorry. Yeah. Our intent is to have, that's a site plan in question, but our intent is to do that because that's becoming a norm in the building code for single-family homes, and I think multifamily residents should have the same opportunity. So we will consider that, and we would like to incorporate it. It can be part of our site plan.
Great, thank you. Good question. I will point out that because we do site plan discussions at the same time that we go through zoning, the planning department does, typically in our planning process, we're a little bit more liberal in allowing people to ask site plan questions at the public meeting stage. So, thank you. Councillor Zanuck.
I'm going to take the chair and if you had questions, that's all. No.
I don't see any other hands, so I will, you're psychic. I will let you take
The
it.
chair and recognize.
Appreciate your response. We have declared a climate emergency. We were one of the first cities that do. So there are certain things that are in our official plan that currently say, point out the shoulds, not always the shalls. But at this committee stage, we often ask questions such as, and encourage, and our staff dutifully write them down, and they encourage developers later to consider an electric charging station in the parking lot. And one thing I always bring up is there's a should in our official plan about using permeable hard surface, which I understand may be modestly more expensive than the hard surface, but it's a lot better for avoiding potential flooding conditions in heavy rainfalls. So again, that's something I'd definitely encourage you to consider. And I just want to say that you have done a really nice job on both Albert Street and your former property on Max Street. And I'm assuming these will be kind of similar quality stacked townhouses that you've built before?
Absolutely. These, every project we do, we try to get better. So we expect the level of these projects to be at a higher standard than those.
Thank you. And I will bring up a couple of questions in reference to commenting on that. You did a very good job on secure bike parking, particularly on Albert Street. Is it your intention to have the required number or even more in a secure bike shed on property? And I'll ask a similar question in a minute about, I'll ask it now, about waste management, which you handle very well, I believe, on Albert Street.
We are currently, I failed to mention, we are currently providing 24 bike parking spaces. They're not currently envisioned to be secured or covered, but certainly that could be sorted out through site plan and provided for.
One other note to that effect, Adam mentioned that these units are 3-bedroom. The projects you mentioned are 4-bedroom, predominantly 4-bedroom units, so with the same ratio of 1 spot. So technically, there's a chance that there's more bike parking per occupant than those other projects. So I think it's appropriate, but we can sort that out through site plan.
Thank you very much. If you want to return the chair.
I return.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, I will open it up for public questions or comments and just move to any of the mics. And it's confusing because red is actually on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the proponents for the presentation. Also praise the clarity of the work tonight. I was just wondering if maybe the slides could have been included in the agenda package. That would have been helpful. Some of my questions have already been asked, but I do want to ask some of the others. I wasn't able to tell from the diagram whether you're planning to have elevators in the building. So that's a question. I walked by there today to take a look at it, and I live about 7 blocks away. So I should give my address, actually, 495 Alfred, apartment 2, K7K4J4. So I live about 7 blocks away. I spent about half an hour looking at the property this afternoon. And I noticed that Elm Street, which is on the north, is substantially narrower than Colborne, which is on the south. And it's a narrow street, especially in winter when you have snow and that sort of thing going on. And it's also right off Chatham Street, which is also very narrow. It's an older part of the city. So my suggestion in a respectful manner would be to consider putting the entrance, instead of having it off Elm, to have it off Colborne. Just because you have a traffic issue with the width of the streets, and you're going to be increasing the density, so that means there's more cars and bicycles and so forth coming in and out of there. So I'm wondering if that alternative had been looked at. What I'm wondering is, you're saying you have 72 bedrooms that you're planning with the 2 buildings combined and all the units. How many bedrooms are there in the existing houses that are there now? I'm wondering if you have that. It would be very useful to know. Now, I'm wondering as well, I think this is an important point, you've got a large surface area for parking here, as you need, the 20 spots, and the landscape is basically level. So what is your stormwater management plan? You've got a lot of exposed pavement there that's going to generate snow and so forth, so didn't see that in the report. And it is an older neighborhood. Are there any heritage-related aspects coming into play here? I don't see any special value in the quality of the buildings that are there. They're functional, but they're not, say, landmark-type buildings or so forth. I'm just wondering if that's been looked at. And I just wanted to clarify, this is not in the Williamsville...
30 seconds.
Thank you. This is not in the Williamsville Main Street study area. I think it misses by about a block, right? I think you pointed that out. I just wanted to clarify that. Because I was in on the discussion on that, and we discussed it at the Williamsville Association. So I've been impressed with Podium's work in the past. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
So any further questions or comments to the proponents or questions to our staff? If you want to help yourself to a microphone.
I was wondering how far... Steven Zentiel. I'm at 59 Stanley Street, apartment 15. And first, I noticed that the folks are looking to rezone. I wanted to know how far away from that red zone that follows along Princess there they wanted to be. How far away from that existing zone they're looking to obtain. And then I did notice that the frontage had been amended for increased on Elm Street, but I don't think it had been increased on Colborne, and I wanted to know if that was going to be under consideration for snow, because the sidewalks and all that. And to follow this gentleman, I wanted to know if, in addition to creating a look that can encompass some of the heritage, the rich heritage that we have in Kingston, if the materials can be sourced sustainably as we look to achieve our plans, our city plan of fewer carbon emissions and such.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll look for a response from both the proponents and our staff, if they would.
So speaking to, I'm just going to go in order here. We are not anticipating to have any elevators within these buildings. They are split level stacked, or they're stacked townhouse units, and so some will be partial down, some will be partial up, and doesn't justify use of an elevator within these, or 24 elevators rather, or 12, I guess. Secondly, Elm Street and the traffic, we did have a traffic or transportation consultant study the flows, the ebbs and flows of the traffic throughout the day, and it was found to be appropriate. It is a good point that although Elm Street is narrower, sometimes site layout restrictions and certainly the shape of the lot play a factor in how you can utilize a site and how you can lay out the different components, and that certainly played a factor here. The existing number of bedrooms, I do not know off the top of my head. Hold on. It's 20 bedrooms currently. So we'd be replacing 20 with the 72. In terms of stormwater management, that's certainly a item that is dealt with through site plan approval, and there are many ways that we could accomplish this on the site and provide some infiltration or retention. Heritage concerns have been considered and found not to be an issue on the site. I appreciate you bringing that up. Certainly, Kingston's a beautiful city, and there's good reason. And I appreciate you raising the Williamsville concern as well. My look at the official plan found it to be within the Williamsville neighborhood, I guess, but certainly there's discrepancy there from time to time, map to map.
And perhaps staff can comment on the zoning, because it's a little bit confusing sometimes. People confuse the Williamsville corridor zone with Williamsville proper. So it's my understanding this site is outside of the Williamsville corridor zoning.
Yes, through Mr. Chair. So the site is within the broader Williamsville district and neighborhood, of which you are the councillor. But within the city's planning documentation, the red corridor sort of that was shown along Princess Street is sort of the formal Williamsville Main Street, for which there is specific official plan policies and zoning for. So this site falls just outside of that area, and it is designated currently in the official plan as residential and is currently zoned for multiple dwelling units.
Thank you. So I believe that's all of the questions that were answered. We'll go back to the committee. Are there questions or comments from the committee? Yes, Councillor Hutchison.
I've got a question, but it's also specific. It applies to this development as well. And what I've noticed in the recent applications is, and this one included, so this is aimed at staff, is the tendency for the minimum bicycle parking space dimensions to be allowed. That is, they're lower. What's being proposed, it tends to be, looks like going to be approved, is lower than what is required. And then I start to wonder whether we're actually encouraging bicycle use, and particularly efficient bicycle use, because we're leaving less room for the bicycles, each to be parked. You know, one of staff has a response to that. And yes, I know they can hang them, but the more you jam them together, the worse the facility is, okay?
Thank you. I believe that was directed to staff regarding bicycle parking, but the proponent may want to comment as well.
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, we'll certainly that and address that in the report. But as to what the applicant has specifically in mind, I maybe direct that to them if there's anything they wanted to say at this point about the bicycle parking facilities.
Thank you. Did you want to comment on that?
Simply that there's ample time within the site planning process to address that concern, certainly, and although it doesn't take up much space, so we'd be happy to certainly meet the minimum requirements or more.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? The price of this being in Williamsville, I will make a final comment if I can. So.
I think the chair recognizes.
I think Mr. Hutchison is asking for a vote on that decision. Just a couple of quick questions. I look at when you're proposing to get a building permit, which gives me a certain amount of optimism because there's at least one major development on Princess Street that will somewhat overlap with this development, and there's another one I understand coming down the pipe. And having 2 or 3 projects within a close proximity could create some nightmares for the neighborhood. How will you, I'm assuming Chatham is a very narrow street, so I'm assuming you won't be using Chatham Street much for construction vehicles or that. And there isn't as much site preparation that's going to be required on this site. But how do you propose to not have an impact with the other larger developments just south of you?
Through you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the impact of construction, first of all, this is a relatively small development. It's we're digging down only about 4 feet where the residential structure are. There's very little soil removed, so the amount of vehicles coming in and out, where the developments on Princess Street are a lot more intense and a lot more activity surrounded them. Appropriately timing it in the right time, and that could be part of a site plan tool as well in terms of when we are undertaking the work to minimize impact and also when construction vehicles are actually in the site. So it's something we're willing to work with to make it better for the community.
Thank you. That's somewhat reassuring. Thank you. My other comment, very quickly, my last comment, I believe, regarding the handling of water on the site, stormwater management. There's a lot of green space there now that's going to become hard surface. And I believe, and staff will correct me if I'm wrong, as they always do, I believe that the condition of the development is that it has to have either the same amount of drainage from the site or less drainage from the site, and that we will be getting a stormwater report before the comprehensive recommendation comes forward. Is that accurate?
You, Mr. Chair. We would deal with, I'll have to check and double check and see if that has been submitted yet, but we certainly deal with that at the site plan stage. And certainly engineering standard is that for any development, thank you. Yes, so there has been a stormwater management report submitted for the zoning, which will also play into the site plan as well. And certainly engineering standard is that the on-site drainage, the flows, post-development have to equal at least pre-development or be less than. And certainly as to what that exact standard should be for this site is something that we'll work out with our colleagues in engineering and with the applicant as it moves forward for site plan.
And I know that this isn't a major development where we typically request a peer review, but how will we go about reviewing the stormwater report that they present from their, from whoever they hire as a consultant?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So certainly right now, all of that information is reviewed by staff within engineering who do have actually key staff who specialize solely in stormwater management. So we can check with them in terms of their review and any comments that they have. It would only be the case where the staff had serious concerns over what was presented and what could be accomplished on the site, I think where we would seek an outside third opinion. And so certainly given the number of comments that have been raised, I can certainly address that as part of my, my comprehensive report.
And hard surface would be helpful in that. Sorry. Thank you very much. Done.
I return the chair to
I don't believe there are any more questions or comments, so I will declare this public meeting over. Thank you. Yeah. Can you? I've timed out on my computer, so great. This may become one of our shortest planning meetings ever. We're now going into our regular meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Mover and a seconder for approving the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Sanik. With the added. Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Carried. Confirmation of minutes from our November 13th and June 6th. I'm sorry, number 13, held June 6th. Mover, thank you. Councillor Chappelle, seconded by Councillor Hutchison. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Delegations? Yes.
Was that meeting in November? Oh, sorry.
No, my glasses fogged over and it said number and I read November. I apologize. It was June 6th, so.
Was here. What I was worried about, that neither one of us were there. We couldn't do it.
So delegations, we have no briefing. We have no business. We have no motions. Notices of motion, seeing none. Other business, seeing none. We did receive some correspondence in the addeds. Seeing no comments. Date and time of the next meeting, July 4th. You can bring your fireworks. No, July 4th. We'll be here. Yes?
Mr. Chair, we have one July 4th, and we have one the next Thursday, right? No, only July 4th? Okay, thanks. I had it written both days in my day timer. I just wanted to verify that.
Thank you. Everybody's favorite motion. Who would like to move to adjourn? Oh, I'll give the chair to Councillor Osanek so she can ask for adjournment.
I was adjourned. Raise your hand. We're adjourned.
Thank you.